Hi everybody and welcome back. Now today we're going to finish off the subject of nutrition as a foundation stone for good health in all humans. A couple of points you might find a bit controversial, but I know you'll find it interesting. Now, I know I have banged on a bit, well, a lot, about glucose, but I hope you get it. You see, glucose and highly processed foods are two of the biggest silent killers of modern man, and believe it or not, it is well known. The rest of the nutrition story is about natural foods and about us finding the food balance in our life. Finding that food balance in the face of corporate marketing might explain why many of us find it so difficult to lose weight and difficult to not eat the wrong types of food, and why many of us end up with many of the common modern metabolic diseases such as heart and artery issues, dementia, diabetes and cancers, and mental health imbalance. Yep, they're all directly connected, and it's all well documented science. Again, this is common knowledge to many people, but it certainly never occurred to me. I mean to say, how can any of us know what we don't know? Until we know it, right? The common story promoted by our medical and health industries is that we get all of the nutrition our body requires from a healthy diet. Sounds good in theory, but for their reasons, they fail to educate us as to what actually constitutes a healthy diet and why, with one well-reported exception. It was called the Standard American Diet, and for several decades was highly promoted by health industries throughout the world, including our own. Now, on record, it turned out to be nothing less than a money-making con, designed by the American agricultural industry, the food manufacturing and sales industry, and pharmaceutical industry. And it was a killer. It involved a diet consuming 80% high glucose carbohydrates and highly nutritionally empty processed chemical compounds, which were advertised and sold as food. So, if the industries are not going to educate us, then who does? Now that only leaves each of us to learn for ourselves the Ministry of Health, which for many is considered completely untrustworthy, and of course private enterprise, which caters to a customer demand and not necessarily the facts. And what other reasons could explain why our medical and health industries are clearly so unwilling to provide good education on the subject for our people? Well, intriguingly, one answer is that the science of healthy nutrition is considered a direct financial challenge to the pharmaceutical and modern medicine business model, and therefore our GPs are not allowed to promote the virtues of nutrition even if they wanted to. In fact, one bright spark worked out that if the pharmaceutical industries could have legal ownership of just vitamin D3, the sunshine hormone, which fortunately to date they can't register ownership of the sun's rays, and they instructed the GPs to treat every ailment that would respond with a positive outcome with their compound, then the financial return to the pharmaceutical industry would be around $2 trillion per year. Now, that's too much for my little brain to figure out, but it's a lot of money. But also that would mean the end of the pharmaceutical industry as we know it, because the bulk of things would get a positive result simply by treating them with vitamin D3. So they don't go near it, and they use every opportunity to push back against it. But even if they wanted to educate their patients at this point in time, GPs would not be reimbursed for their time because this addition is not included in the health system business model as it stands, because we have a 15 to 20 minute patient appointment time only, and that is no time for explanation as well. And we must remember that even though they are great people in our life, our GP is generally an employee of the health system. And that is something I really had to get my head around. They must do what those in the health industry dictate, or based on history, they can be publicly and unceremoniously stripped of their title, position, and their income. And GPs also have bills that need to be paid. It is thought that this also is a good reason why even general nutrition testing is not part of their diagnostic model or their business model, so it tends never to happen. It's available elsewhere in the community, but because it won't be government or insurance subsidised, we have to pay for it ourselves. Nice to know. Ironically, nutrition is taught in a veterinary degree, animal doctor, but not a medical degree, a human doctor, as if other mammals are completely different from humans. And of the 130 odd different recognised medical specialists in our health industry, none are nutritional based. Again, ironic really, because 2,500 years ago, the words and philosophy of a man called Hippocrates, that's Mr. Hippocrates, was adopted by the medical industry as the father and therefore the foundation of so-called modern medicine. 3 of his famous quotes are, "Let food be your medicine and medicine be your food." Now, he also said informed consent for the patient, along with first do no harm to your patient. But again, based on history, even recent history, that is not what our health industry or medical industry promotes. Therefore, the once lauded Hippocratic oath, revered by many young doctors and patients alike, appears to be just another self-promotional marketing tool and certainly not defended by the general practitioners collective, which just really proves the point. So, what is a healthy diet for us humans? Now, to understand that, we have to follow the science and not the industries. And the science says very clearly, it is everything our gut bacteria and brain thrives on, which happens to be everything our ancient ancestors have eaten over the previous millions of years. Now, that means plenty of volume and variety of fresh, seasonal plant material, natural fats and proteins, and sunlight in the form of vitamin D3. Not to forget plenty of good fresh water and plenty of fresh air. No processed foods, no glucose-enriched goodies, and no cheating. And of course, it was a lot easier thousands of years ago because there was no choice, simply because there was no fast foods and no food industry advertising, acting like food experts while at the same time recommending we buy and eat the stuff that harms us and addicts us, and as a result directs us into the arms of the medical and pharmaceutical industries to be monitored, treated and managed for life. There is even a saying, a patient cured means a profit lost for life. Oh dear. Now, remember, the science can show that 99% of all metabolic issues are food-driven. That's correct, food-driven. And that is why metabolic issues are classed as a 21st century modern disease, as they never used to exist, and certainly not in the numbers we experience today. But to add to the confusion of what actually constitutes a healthy diet, every different age group amongst us also has different nutritional requirements. Because as we age, not only does our body become less efficient at manufacturing and absorbing specific nutrients, but get this, every age group has different bacteria species and combinations in their gut that require slightly different nutritional requirements, from a newborn to a 90-year-old. So how does the diet requirements differ between a young family to a 90-year-old? Well, simply put, with the exception of a newborn baby, ironically, it is generally the same, with slight variations and in different amounts depending on the age and stage of development of an individual and the different bacteria making up the gut community throughout that individual's life. And for all age groups, beginning with a newborn and the beginning of their critical mental, emotional and physical development, there is zero room for any of the yummy sweet stuff that we all get such pleasure from and are so addicted to. Now, on that point, and just for interest, studies show that most elderly folk are nutritionally deficient at many levels, which is a major contributing cause of many so-called age-related health issues. So keep that in mind if you have an elderly family member. Now, hopefully their nutritional status is all topped up. And the idea is not necessarily to live longer, but to do it more calmly and comfortably. And remember, nutritional deficiencies will trigger the stress response every time, which can mean bouts of unsettled panic and even anxiety. And that is so unnecessary. And then you discover that in today's world, what we eat is even the last thing considered by our medical and health industries as part of a health recovery plan. In fact, the standard in-hospital recovery diet includes highly processed foods and delicious but scientifically proven harmful sweet yummies. Even new mothers are seldom told why a specific diet is critical pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and pre and post-birth. For example, mother's breast milk is loaded with vitamin D3 and cholesterol and comes direct from the mother's body. And if she becomes deficient, it's so simple, and yet it appears many people simply don't know. And yet it's common knowledge for the lucky ones. Now, even cardiosurgeons have commented that a patient can go from pre-operation with no nutritional recommendations as a build-up into heart surgery, and then post-operation direct onto the in-house processed foods and sweetie desserts for a treat. And as soon as they are able, the patient satisfies their predictable carbo-rich cravings and buys treats from the in-house, on-site, fast food franchise outlet. And during the recovery period in hospital, feasts on hamburgers, cakes, soft drinks, lollies, and smoothies, etc., topping up on the same chemicals which so often was the underlying reason for their heart surgery in the first place. So, in 2 sentences, it turns out that the correct nutrition that we consume is critical, not only for a child's development, but for all of us of all age groups, in order to maintain good health and to prevent and repair all kinds of human illness and infections. And clearly it includes the prevention and recovery of mental health issues at every level. And that is why nutrition is classed as a foundation stone for good health. And it is why a deficiency or toxicity of any nutrition, mineral, or chemical will trigger our ancient stress response every time. And so often we have been doing it to ourselves. If only we knew. And it's all been scientifically researched. Phew, that was a big one, but we did it. Nice job, everyone. We have just completed the nutritional section. I hope you've learned something in there. I found that quite fascinating. Now check out my brilliant references in the comments section below and YouTube these highly respected scientists for yourself and see what they have to say in general and about your specific situation. This gives us access to real top quality scientific information, and it's available to all of us. Okay, and in the next video, we'll talk about the 3rd foundation stone for good health, which surprisingly is our gut bacteria. Our gut bacteria. So we'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.